Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we, the good folks here at Nerd Caliber, or at least the okay folks here at Nerd Caliber, we'll all get together and talk about some recent piece of nerdy entertainment and talk about it in depth. We're looking at what worked, what didn't work, what was good, what was bad, messages, themes, and so on. Which means, of course, we have to spoil the heck out of it. So tonight we are, in fact, looking at Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which just ended this last Friday, had its last episode of 6 of 6. And if you have seen it, that's cool. Jump on into the chat, say things, give your opinions on our opinions, your observations, and so on. If you haven't and you hate spoilers, you should probably find something else to watch.
You're in the wrong place.
You are in the wrong place. If you haven't and you don't mind spoilers, then by all means, hang around. You know, give us your opinion. Tell us what you think of our opinions. So, I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor in chief of Nerd Caliber, first person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley underscore adopter on Twitter and a couple of other places as a tech journalist. Joining me tonight is the man who has to catch them all, or gotta catch them all, Byron, if you would.
Hey guys, Byron McNeil, aka Byron D0 on multiple facets of the internet, and self-proclaimed Polka Master. I I'm a contributing writer and content creator on a number of fronts for Nerd Caliber. Uh, I also do a little bit of art on the side. I have a web comic that I'm currently working on the latest chapter for called Codename Blackbird. If you want to check it out, it's codename blackbird.thecomicseries.com. And I'm glad to talk about this show and all of its excellent themes with you guys tonight.
Cool beans. And the man who started this whole shebang, Manny, if you would.
Hello, my name is Manny. I'm the founder of Nerd Caliber. I am the co-owner along with my brother in arms, Rodney Brown, and we're here going to talk about a very fantastic series.
Or Brother in Beard, either way works. So, the way this usually works, folks, and again, spoilers, for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Tanya Giacome, I'm going to think that's the way your last name is pronounced. Welcome to the show. Is that we talk first about what worked and what didn't work, what we liked, what we didn't like, and so on, before we then get into messages, themes. I'm going to think the messages and themes are probably going to dominate this because I'm putting this right out there. This is the deepest and most morally complex thing the MCU has done to this point, um, by a long shot, actually. Um,
A
and
close sec. I mean, I would say that the Winter Soldier movie was a close second, but
yeah, maybe it is second. I'll
Yeah,
give you
I
that.
mean, I mean, the movies were definitely political thrillers, I would say,
Yeah,
in that
mm,
category. But this series is a little different. It is also a political thriller, but it's not. It has so much more
yeah,
mm,
yeah.
packed in.
I agree, which is why I think it's complex. It's
yes,
really complex, um,
definitely I'm
in
on mute.
a thematic sense, if not necessarily so in a plot or story sense. But anyway, so we're going to start off with, I think we're going to do it a little bit differently. Instead of doing likes and dislikes person to person, we're going to do likes around, then dislikes around,
Mhm.
to try to break up, the talking and stuff. So we're going to start with Byron.
All
Byron,
right.
give us likes and what worked.
Okay. Well, like I I like the I like the backstories that were being used in this series, like how Bucky's on his quest for redemption, and he's kind of come to an impasse with this with the with the father of the Japanese boy that he killed as a Winter Soldier, and how it's creating a sort of mental blockage that makes it impossible for him to like become the kind of hero that Steve knew he could be. And I loved every ounce of racial tension that was in this show because there was a lot of it. I mean, you got the Isaiah Bradley storyline. You got Sam's sister with the banks and whatnot. And even just Sam giving up the shield was definitely an allegory for racism to an extent. Because the way the senator is like, oh, you did the right thing. It's like, oh, did I now?
You could even say him giving up the shield and then it immediately going to a white man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, boy, is that kind of on the nose.
Yeah, it is. I love the visuals. I love the casting choice for U.S. Agent. Wyatt Russell, like he managed to encompass what made John Walker the kind of character that you love to hate. You know, he's not all bad, but he's not all good.
Yeah, he did an excellent job of portraying, is that word again, a very complex character.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I like most of the costumes, like a lot. I like Bucky's homage to the classic costume from the comics that made him look like his superhero counterpart from the comics as a kid. I like Sam's Falcon costume a lot. John Walker, that was like a fabulous rendition of the U.S. Agent style. The music was definitely on point. Oh, Zemo's costume. I loved seeing Zemo in his true form as as a master manipulator. Where I know people loved him in Civil War, but I felt like he was too much behind the scenes. Like, yes, he was a master manipulator in the comics, but you knew that he was there. Not so much in Civil War, though.
Okay. Yeah, I think he was more a in-your-face character.
Yes.
I don't think he ever got up to the level of antagonist in this.
Oh, no.
But, yeah, in the comics, he is much more, he like sword fights with Cap and things like that. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love this costume, too, though. It's like, they just give him the mask. They didn't explain it. They didn't have to. It's like, this is just fan service.
Yep.
And that jacket.
Or building up to something.
It could be. And can I just take a second to gush over that jacket? That jacket had Zemo had some serious drip going on with that jacket.
Yeah.
Like he was like soaking in swagoo, like Jesus.
Now I do love the fact that he gets that because of the fact that he's a Baron, which we don't know anything about from Civil War. We do know that he has the resources to travel all over the world to track down this Hydra, information, but we don't know how and why. And as it turns out, well, he's a Baron, as he is in the comics. So, anything else on the like side?
I could go on, but I don't want to take up the entire hour.
All right, well, feel free to jump in if somebody reminds you of something or anything like that. Just, jump right in. Manny, likes and what worked?
Oh, wow. I don't know where to begin. This is a 6-part series. This 6-part series is fantastic. When I first heard that Marvel's going to put out the WandaVision and Loki and this series, I figured they're just going to be like not so heavy plots, things like that. I figure it's just going to be teasers that lead on to the movies, pretty much.
Yes.
I didn't expect like the level like Mandalorian writing, just because I just figured these are just teasers to get you to watch the movies in the theaters. But WandaVision, but WandaVision was very good, so I had high hopes for this, and it blew my expectations. I mean, it's written so well. It like it, and I don't know, like political thriller. It's a drama. It deals with themes of race, and the fact that it deals with how we view veterans and people that dealt
Yes.
with PTSD. I mean, the fact it juggled so much. It did such a good job with that. I mean, not perfect. I don't want to come across
Oh,
that,
definitely not.
but it did it. I mean um I love the Sam's and Bucky's like friendship, and how they in the beginning they just sort of like they really like each other. They were forced to work together, and then they just grew to like be like a family. And like
Romance.
and I love that they took time with that. I love they took time with that. Like episode 5, some people complain like, oh, there's hardly any action, and it's just all like drama. But that was like good drama. It kept me on my seat. I love seeing how they grew as characters, and I usually stuff like that. Usually, you wait to the end of the series to see some sort of growth.
Yeah.
But no, it was happening throughout the series, which made me enjoy it so much more. So there was just a lot happening. Um, uh, the the villains, and I put that in quotes because that's you know
As for the
the
next section,
the flag smashers. It was I like this interpretation of them. In the comics, they were kind of like costume terrorists and super terrorists, like kind of like an AIM, lesser version of AIM or Hydra. But this group the way they fleshed them out and their cause made so much. I love the fact that the blip, this 5 year
yep.
disappearance of half the population on Earth is taken very seriously. There's like repercussions worldwide of what happened. So I'm so happy they're addressing that, because when I saw that in the end of the Avengers movies that they kept that, I was like, okay, that to me is like an extremely traumatic event. How is that? That's going to change everything, and they're thinking of that, and I'm really glad that they are. Um, Sharon Carter was great. I I wish they would kind of flesh out more of um, her background, but I can talk more about dislikes afterwards. But I have
Mm.
theories about that too. What
Yeah, I do as well.
but we can talk about that. Just remind me about Sharon Carter. We'll go back to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't worry,
Be-
it'll come up.
yeah, I like this version of Zemo. I think I actually like it better than the comic version. I like Zemo in the comics.
I
I
love his
mean,
dancing.
but uh, Zemo in the comic books, he's a son of a Nazi. Just wants to destroy them just because he wants to continue his father's legacy. And I think one of my favorite Avengers arcs from the comic books is Under Siege, where he took all the Masters of Evil and just devastated the Avengers. It was one of my favorite story arcs growing up. So watching the interpretation of the movie version of Zemo is very interesting, because it's not like that at all. He's a very complicated character. He's privileged, but doesn't see himself that way. He sees himself as a almost like a martyr to the cause of trying to just stop superhumans
Yep.
on the planet. Stop his version of what he thinks is his version of white supremacy in his mind.
Yeah.
But so I love that version a lot. It makes his character much more interesting, not just a one sided character
Yeah.
villain.
He was pretty complex. He was pretty complex at times.
Yep.
Yes. Um, and let me see. I'm trying to think of anything else like jump in my head, but that's why that just jumps up to me about the show.
Yeah.
I was thinking about. I was just thinking when you brought up Zemo, the conversation between him, Bucky, and Sam on the plane about Trouble Man, and he's just like, Sam's just like, he's out of line, but he's not wrong. I'm just like, God damn, he's correct. Like,
yeah, that shouldn't be coming out of that Eastern European white boy's mouth. But he ain't wrong. All right, so essentially, I like most of the same things you guys have all pointed out already. But my biggest like out of this is just the balls that this show had. We'll
Big
get
brass
into
ones.
big brass ones. We'll get into this when we get into messages and themes and so on later on. But the fact that Marvel had the stones to do the Isaiah Bradley story, do it right. I mean, almost beat for beat from the comic book, in the middle of a story about essentially a return to nationalism, in this case because of the blip, but still a return to nationalism. You know, countries all around the world just buying right into nationalism. The status of, we'll call them refugees because in this world we call them refugees. In that world, I agree 100% with the teacher who said, we don't use the word refugees because there's nothing that we are taking refuge from. We are immigrants. I just, the fact that, and then again, we'll get into this, it all wraps up, and when you realize what the overall theme of this thing is, and you realize how many different characters that are not necessarily heroes reinforce this theme, it's really brave of Marvel to do this, and I love that. I absolutely adore that. I think that there are a lot of things that I've said have been very important movies. Wonder Woman was, in addition to being a pretty good movie, was a very, very important movie. This TV series is important in a way that I would say nothing has since very recently the sequel to Watchmen, but even more so than that in my mind, because it broadens this American problem and American experience out into the entire world, and it's just outstanding the way it does that.
Indeed.
The acting is fantastic. I've said this before. I'm not a huge fan of some of the things Anthony Mackie has been in.
Same.
Or Anthony Mackie in some of the things he's been in. And if you've missed last week's Full Fat Spoiler Chat, go watch Synchronic. It's the best performance he's ever done by orders of magnitude, stellar orders of magnitude. He's freaking amazing in that movie.
Well, I mean, he's definitely on the come up too. So.
Well, he is, and I think it's entirely based on partly the work and the writing, but also whoever's directing him. He was okay in Altered Carbon 2, but not enough that I finished the whole series. He was.
I thought he was great in 8 Mile, going way back.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, actually, yeah. There's some things going way back that early on I thought he was amazing. Obviously, in Winter Soldier, he was fantastic.
Yes,
and pretty much every appearance as the Falcon, he's been wonderful.
I mean, I enjoyed him in The Hate You Give, although I'm glad that he's breaking away from those kind of roles now.
Yeah,
because he's definitely more than just that.
Yeah, but then what was the thing? Outside the Wire? Oh God. He's really good in this. And given the opportunity to do some really complex acting, emotionally and intellectually.
That speech.
I was about to say that speech. You have to be a good actor to pull off that speech.
But he wouldn't have been able to do that speech without his interaction with Isaiah Bradley. And that is fantastic.
Yeah.
All of it, and his bromance with Bucky. To be honest, I thought it was fun, but it was sort of the least interesting part of his acting.
Yeah,
I agree 100% that Wyatt Russell was perfect for John Walker. He trode that line between being somebody who you really, really admire and somebody that you really, really despise. And that's a tough line because it doesn't seem like there's any middle ground there, but there is. So other things I liked, I love some of the appearances that the fact that we get Elijah Bradley, even though he's hardly even, I don't think he's even named. I guess Isaiah may say his name at one point, but calls him Eli.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's wonderful for what it portends for upcoming Young Avengers and so on.
Soon.
Hopefully soon. Well, it's not on the docket, and they've scheduled movies out to 2023. So,
Well, they got to get X-Men first.
not necessarily, but anyway. Um, let's see. Other things I really liked about it. Uh, the action was pretty good. There were some fights that were particularly filmed, not badly, filmed boringly. Some of them were staged beautifully and therefore came across beautifully. But honestly, the directors of, I don't think they're action directors. Um, a lot of it was pretty blocky, you know,
Yeah.
let's watch two people fight in a warehouse kind of thing. And when you think about, the action direction in, all three seasons of Daredevil, um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a shame. Um,
They should have David Leitch direct the next season.
yeah, or I don't know. I mean, I really like what the directors, for the most part, did with other aspects of this.
Oh,
Particularly getting the performances out.
are we into the dislike section now? It looks like we're
No, because I guess I was still talking. Yeah, I shouldn't go into dislikes yet.
Mhm.
Let's see. Other likes. Um, Isaiah Bradley specifically. Carl Lumbly. Please,
Oh.
bring him back into anything. You know, I don't care how you do it.
For you youngins at home, he was in a very popular show on Fox called Mantis.
Yeah. Well.
Oh
yeah.
yes.
Reasonably popular.
It got like 2 or 3 seasons, right?
Maybe two.
Two. I think
It didn't last
seasons.
long.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
So deep cut.
Very deep cut. I love again when sort of Easter eggy things. I love the fact that it's set partly in Madripoor, and they get Madripoor pretty well, pretty accurately done. Even
Just
without. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said they're flexing those Fox muscles now.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess they probably couldn't have used Madripoor at all if it wasn't for accessing the X-Men intellectual property, because that's an X-Men location. And I guess that's pretty much it for my major likes. Without getting too deep into, like I said, the messaging and so on, which is really where this thing shines. So Byron, what didn't you like, and what didn't work for you?
Okay. I'll start with one of my milder ones, which was Sam's Cap costume. Like, I'll be honest, I like the heavy emphasis on the white better in the comic than I did in live action form, because I don't know, it's just something about it just feels impractical to me.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
it's the it's the fashionista in me. Like, anyone who knows me knows that I'm all about style, and I'm just like, this looks cool, but it's just not, like, it just doesn't feel practical as far as I was doing like some sketches like after Endgame of what I thought it would look like, and I had it more like along the lines of having heavier red and blues with like the white star still in the middle, and maybe some silver or metallic gray to replace the white.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a very interesting look. It would look a lot like his Falcon costume.
Yeah, that's what I was initially hoping for. I'm like, oh, they'll just put the star on that. I'm like, no, they didn't.
No, they went with almost exactly the design from the comics.
Yeah, and it just didn't work for me. I'm sure there are plenty of people who loved it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm in that camp. I disagree with you, but
yeah,
to each their own.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still gonna cosplay him at some point in that garish costume, but I'm gonna complain the whole time. The fact that Battlestar got fridged. that did not need to happen. It didn't need to happen, and I will die on this hill because it's just like there could have been like they could have like paralyzed him. They could have done just about anything else but killing him off. It felt so cheap. It felt like something pulled straight out of the 90s or even the 80s.
It's pulled straight out of the comic, but
yeah.
I mean, I can see that. Intellectually, I agree with you that the idea of having to fridge a character as rage incentive for another character is old. It's lazy. It's it shouldn't have to happen, but it did happen in the comic, and
That's
something
fair.
that would trigger John Walker's rage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was kind of just hoping that he would have like more story in this franchise, but if he died in the comics, I guess I can't argue with it too much.
Yeah.
Carly. Yes, Carly. She's like my big one, cause you're kind of just like, oh, you're still here. Like, nothing against the actress. The actress is phenomenal. She is she
was great in Solo.
I was gonna say I loved her in Solo.
Yep.
She wasn't given a lot. She wasn't given a lot to work with in this series.
She was given the wrong stuff to work with in this series.
Yeah,
that's my contention. But I'll get to that when I get to my part.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment too. She just felt so forgettable to me, and I mean that's just me. I don't know if other people will share my opinion, but
I do. So there's two.
Yeah. She was wasted on that role.
Nando V Movies shared your opinion, so there's three.
Well, there you go.
Anything else?
No, not really. The rest are just nitpicks.
Okay. Manny, just give you your full beautiful name there. Manny, what didn't work? What didn't you like?
When I saw the series, I went and looked at the movies and I looked at the comic books, and I realized Captain America was a political series. Just kidding.
You don't say.
I'm just trolling.
Keep the politics out of my comics.
I get really surprised when I hear that, because I'm like, how? I mean, the first issue of Captain America is him punching Adolf Hitler. I don't know how much more political that how you missed that, But anyway, seriously, the only thing that really stood out to me is a little weird in the series that like is Madripoor, that the fact that there's no Asians. I didn't see much Asians in Madripoor. I thought that was a little weird.
Good point.
Yeah, that is a good point.
But besides that, I'll be honest, I didn't find much fault with it. Sure, some things were a little weird and odd, and then even the ending is made in some ways to be open-ended because it's leading to actually other series, other movies. But I didn't have much say except that again, Sharon Carter, I wish there was more to her motivation. But okay, here's my theory. She's a Skrull.
I was gonna say the same thing.
It's setting up for Secret Invasion. That's my theory.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's it. I don't have much negative things to say, like major negative things. There's things I can nitpick, but nothing worth talking about.
Yeah. Same here. I don't have any really major negatives. The biggest negative I have is what Byron mentioned, is Carly Morgenthau as a character. And again, it's not a knock on the actress. The actress was given what she was given. There is no scene anywhere in here where we see her being someone charismatic enough to create an entire international underground movement. The character needed to be shown to be charismatic, not just told that she was charismatic enough to create this whole thing.
Yeah, she was basically a child with a gun.
Essentially. And I get why they made this choice as opposed to having the Flag Smasher, who's a character from the comics, was a guy who kind of espouses exactly the same thing. He hates borders, he hates flags, he wants to destroy all countries. So way more, radical terrorist than somebody who wants to stop, international semi-autonomous governmental unit, the Global Repatriation Council, from basically taking all of these people who were voluntarily asked, invited into open countries that had plenty of room to come in as workers and basically move in, and then suddenly decide that they're refugees and force them back because now the world is 7.5 billion instead of 3.25 billion. So she needed to have written for her. I know I've got a Carly image up here somewhere. There we go. She needed to have written for her a scene where the actress could have pulled out all the charm stops. It's like, yes, this is somebody who people will follow to their death to try to, correct what they see is the evil of this, the GRC, and treating these people who were not refugees as now refugees. That was just it. It really made the character not work as a villain, because when she has her villain turn, it doesn't make any sense. So up to that point, it's like, oh, okay, well, here's somebody we told was charismatic enough to start this whole thing, but all we ever see of her is she's giving some heartfelt speeches about how the GRC and people like that suck, and then fighting people like Sam and so on, and then boom, blowing up innocent people. I'm like, how did? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if this may help you or excuse that, but there was a I was reading somewhere that there was a subplot originally written where one thing they're going to address was a world pandemic
Right.
before, and then they had to edit all that out. That's why the there was the actress who played, I forgot the character's name, but she was the one that passed away, like her mentor.
Right.
She was actually a very famous Italian actress, and she had speaking roles and everything. But um, when they decided to edit out that storyline, they had to do a lot of major editing to sort of take that out, being that we were in a real life pandemic. So I'm wondering maybe that could be why. Because I agree with you that, I mean, there's memes about Zemo and John Walker, all these like you could say villainous characters, but none of any of her scenes per se. Almost like her performance didn't make a serious blip in pop culture.
Right. Because it didn't. Ultimately, it was an excuse to get Zemo to where he needs to be for whatever's going to happen with him in the future in the MCU.
Masters of Evil. Masters of Evil.
Honestly, it's going to be either Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers. And to get John Walker to where he's going to be, to get Sharon Carter where she's going to be, all of this plot that Carly was involved in, ultimately, that's all it was.
She was just a sacrificial lamb.
Literally, she was a sacrificial lamb, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe in that stuff that was cut out, and it's so obvious when you look at it, think about it that way. At the beginning, that very first convoy that they're attacking is described as medicine. Medicine going to these people who are being, forced into the repatriation camps, the internment camps. And medicine for what? Why would there be giant shipments of medicine? It's because this and Danya Marano or something like that.
Mm.
She died. Suddenly, we hear off screen of tuberculosis. So yeah, it's that's my big problem. It didn't affect the fact that I love this series. I just would have been even more head over heels with it if they had actually done this properly. The Carly Morgenthau flag smashers and so on properly. The only other thing that is kind of a weird nitpick is at the end, finally, when the Dora Milaje get their hands on Zemo, they take him to the raft, not Wakanda. They don't work for the GRC or the UN, or there is no SHIELD anymore, so I don't know who runs the raft, but let's say it's the UN. So why are they taking him to the raft and not taking him back to Wakanda, which has plenty good prisons?
Mm-hmm.
That was one of those. Again, it had to happen to get wherever they have to get Zemo to.
Yeah, that was a bit odd.
But then again, and back to another thing I love. My God, the Dora Milaje. Anytime, anywhere. Yes, please.
John Walker scene.
Ever-living crap out of John Walker.
They don't even have powers.
Well, yeah, except they've been trained since birth practically, and they have vibranium weapons and armor. But yeah, they don't have powers.
I love the Captain America meme where it's just like, so your dumbass decided to go up against the Dora Milaje.
I have seen that meme. I don't see a lot of memes. I have seen that one. And so that's really it for my dislikes. Except, okay, I'll do one more. I think Bucky got the short shrift.
Yeah.
It ultimately kind of came around as, by the end, you could change it from Falcon the Winter Soldier to Captain America and helpful sidekick. Yes, Bucky had he started off with a very interesting story. His attempt to right all his wrongs, and eventually getting stuck at not being able to tell Yori-san what he had really done to his son. That was wonderful. The fact that they, and here's one of the things where the directors were beautiful. In the scene where he's first talking to his therapist, the extreme close-ups at odd angles.
Yes, that was brilliant.
What a way to just give you the idea that this guy is not completely on the right keel. Just a wonderful directing touch. So, like I said, they do some things very well. They're just not action directors. So anyway, I did not have. I found this. I did see this a lot. That a lot of people had a problem with Walker's, heel turn back to being a hero. No, because he starts out as a hero. He's got 3 Congressional Medals of Honor.
Yeah.
And Steve has told Tony that what makes you a hero. He didn't say it this way. What makes you a hero is somebody who's willing to do the sacrifice play. And you don't get Congressional Medals of Honor unless you did
do
the sacrifice play. And you either were lucky enough to not die, or you get them posthumously. That's it. That's why why you get those. So he is a hero, and he is set up as a hero. We're shown that. And then we see his decline from being a hero because, unlike Steve, he doesn't have the ability to control his rage. And when given superpowers to be able to control his, to be able to exercise his rage, he does it. He allows it to happen. So he goes from hero to somebody who does something very villainous to going back to kind of the person he was up to a point, by saving some people, but he is still in love with the idea of being a superhero. And we see that at the end where he's finally U.S. agent. Love Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yes.
Holy shit balls.
That was a nice surprise.
She looks hot with purple hair, by the way.
She looks hot with anything. She's fantastic.
Damn straight she does.
But her take on that character was perfect. Just, the absolute non-condescending condescension of Walker's wife while they're sitting on the bench. I was just like, damn. And
I feel. Oh, I said I feel like she perfected that in her role in Veep.
Yes.
Mhm.
This is very much like her role in Veep, except even more so. Because she's a Contessa. She's allowed to be this way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I read the original Nick Fury super
Jim Steranko.
spy Jim Steranko stuff from back in the late 1960s. The whole psychedelic weird stuff that was inspired by the BBC Prisoner series and by like the Matt Helms movies and things like that. I love that, and God, I was so in love with the Contessa. Wow. So for the Contessa to just suddenly show up in this series blew my ever loving mind. Um, but that was a like. I think that's pretty much it for my dislikes, and I think we really need to start talking about what this show is about.
Absolutely.
So messages, meanings, theme, presentation of all of those. Byron, start us off with, let's say, I don't think there is one, not one single one, but if you had to pick the biggest message coming out of this, what would it be?
I'd say the biggest message is accepting the passage of time, accepting your past, accepting what is right now, and preparing for the future. Like if I had to summarize in that one thing, it's like
So
because
let me
you
say
have
that never even occurred to me, but you're 100% right. That is a very important through line to the end of this series.
yeah. I mean, you have perfect examples of like accepting your past with Isaiah and Bucky's storylines where Bucky has to learn to forgive himself, and he's got the perfect therapist to help him find that, and I'm so jealous because he has a therapist that good.
That's a rare find.
Ain't that the truth? And then you have Sam, who in the beginning of the series, he's giving up the shield because he doesn't think he's worthy, and he wants to hold on to his parents' boat, even though like it's ready to give up the ghost. And I'm just like, this is some strong juxtapositioning right here, and I'm here for it. And then I feel like the last couple episodes represent the future, especially when Sam finally puts on that costume.
Yep.
He's saying, I'm ready for you. I'm ready for you. Bring it on.
Yep, that's a good point. Accept your past, learn from it, make it a part of you, so that you can move on to whatever the future is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Manny, what do you think was if there was a primary message, what do you think it was?
If you notice that Zemo, Carly, John Walker, they're not shown as a 100% as a villain, as your typical villain. You know? So it made me think like, okay, who's the real culprit? Who's actually really behind things that has made things worse for everyone in the series, pretty much? And my answer is the government. So I think
that's true.
no, because who gave John Walker that shield? Who told him he could be Captain America? The government. Who's Carly fighting against? The government. So trying to move these people back to where they came from, I guess. Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it's showing who put Isaiah Bradley in jail. The government.
Yep.
You know, it's showing that because of that, all these things are taking place. Issues with from race to what's happened 5 years after the blip, and trying to the government's trying to make things as if making things as they were, and people are fighting against it. And I can understand. I understand Carly's position. It's like that. It just doesn't make any sense.
I want to say though, with where Isaiah Bradley is concerned, like I love like that allegory, the Tuskegee experiments.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it. So it's like this could never happen. The government. Excuse me. You want to open up a history book? Right there. Go ahead. We'll wait.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Manny.
But I think that's to me shows me like that's to me like one of the central themes. But of course, definitely it's discussions about race, discussions about how veterans are treated, and not understanding like they should never gave John Walker the shield, not because he wasn't um, uh, uh, worthy of it, also because he's sort of damaged. He's been through a lot. He's seen some of his friends die. He needed more time to grieve and to
His
work
arms are
through
too
that.
short.
Yeah, and they were the government was way too hurried. Like, how long was the process exactly before John Walker became Captain America? Either they did it took some time, or they rushed it, or something like that. And it just, I'm assuming they rushed it,
Yeah.
because and the fact that they just gave the shield to someone disrespecting Steve's and Sam's wishes with the shield is just it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, there's a lot to like to gather from this series, but those are my initial impressions of what the themes are about.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you. My point is a slightly different, but yes, it's about governments in general, the U.S. government in particular, but also about individuals and particularly superpowered individuals. Um, and I'm going to say right up, I did not steal this from the wonderful YouTube channel Wisecrack, but I highly recommend that you go check out their, I think it dropped today, video analyzing what they call the death of law as one of the biggest signifiers of the meaning of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Ooh,
Um, and it
I
helped
love this
crystallize
stuff.
what I was thinking about what this means or what it meant. I was sort of exactly where you were thinking or how you expressed it, Manny, but now I think it's deeper than that even. Um, and so the idea is yes, it's ultimately the government's or any authority of power, the power broker, um, you know, the U.S. government, the whatever this international but clearly U.S. led coalition called the Global Repatriation Council. When you think about it, all of their troops seem to be U.S. troops. The ones that are rounding people up and moving them into internment camps.
That kind that also kind of reminds me more about my message, my idea of the theme of time, because again, you have the government trying to take things back to 5 years ago because that was what they were comfortable with.
Right.
That was what they knew.
They're not willing to do what Sam is doing and moving on. Good point. Um, but the point here, and the point Wisecrack makes, is basically that um, these governments are now functioning in a sort of extrajudicial capacity because of a sense of exceptionalism. That's always been one of the biggest problems of the United States is the concept of American exceptionalism gives us a sense that we can project force anywhere we want to because we're different than these countries. We're better because of the way our democracy allegedly works. Um,
Fire Nation.
yep. I mean, yes and no. I mean, yes, our democracy often or can work better than almost anything else out there. Often it doesn't even come close. And at times it does things like Isaiah Bradley or in the real world, the Tuskegee syphilis experiments. Because we believe we are exceptional and therefore can make decisions that are outside even our own laws. And every member of any superhero group in the MCU does exactly that every time they step out with their uniform on to fight bad guys. Saying it's not necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, they're setting it up that we wouldn't survive if it weren't for these people in the face of things like Thanos and the Chitauri and so on. But they are doing it outside the confines of the law, which is why the Sokovia Accords make a ton of sense, as that would be the natural reaction of a government or any non-powered people to say, hey, you can't be the ones that stand up here and say, no, this is how and what we're going to fight. Because that means you get to decide and you're super powered. Gotcha, Master Sad. Welcome to the show. We're spoiling the heck out of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you haven't seen it, you might not want to stay around. But so all the way back in Civil War, even all the way back in Winter Soldier, we started talking about how political, what a political thriller it is. We get the idea that it's a bad thing to have these people who believe in exceptionalism making decisions outside the law. S.H.I.E.L.D. is brought down in part because it's hiding Hydra, but also in part because what it started all the way back in the Avengers. Hiding the fact that it's doing secret weapons stuff. It is a secret organization that operates outside the law. Hydra is, of course, a villainous version of that, so it's even worse. But in Civil War, all of that comes to a head with the Sokovia Accords, which make a ton of sense. Whichever side you were on, and in this series, they bring it right down to the point where Zemo says, this type of exceptionalism is nationalism. It will lead to nationalism. It already has. And it's the inevitable outcome of allowing people with powers to make their own decisions. And, of course, Sam says, well, Captain America was never like that. And he said, yes, and there was never another Steve Rogers.
Steve Rogers. Nope. I'm not saying life's imitating art, but...
if you can find a Steve Rogers, Bernie Sanders maybe.
This is some good whiskey.
Okay. So this show is setting up the idea, it's not setting up. It has taken the ideas that were distilled from movies up to this point and blatantly told us superheroes making decisions on their own, unless they are a saintly person like Steve Rogers, is a bad thing and will lead to bad things. And then the fact that, Zemo is manipulating stuff out of prison. We've got U.S. agents. We've seen other hints from other shows about, other bad guys, or even the fact that, the Abomination is going to be coming up in She-Hulk. They are setting up either Dark Avengers or the Thunderbolts.
Also Sword.
Well, yeah, but Sword isn't really involved in the Dark Avengers or Thunderbolts in any particularly significant way.
That's true.
Maybe after the X-Men's introduced.
Yeah. But they're setting that up, and therefore they are going to be reinforcing the idea that giving people superpowers is a really terrible, terrible thing to do. Even more so than this series. Now, that's speculation. I don't know but boy, it really looks like that's where they're going to go.
That just reminds me of the end of Syndrome's speech in The Incredibles, where he's like, when everybody's super, no one will be.
No one will be, exactly. If there's a planet left. But
Spider Island.
What this show, I think, finally concludes on is that the people who need to be in charge of making those decisions have to be human, not superhuman. And they have to have shown that they're willing to sacrifice everything for that. And that's why Sam is the new Captain America. Sam is that person. And he even says it. He says, I don't have any powers. My only power is, believing that we can do the right thing. And that realistically is Steve Rogers' superpower. He just happens to be strong and tough. And that's why I think this is so insanely complex and deep for a Marvel series. Is that, one, it's putting it right into your face. Government tortures black people. Super powered people will do super horrible things. You can't trust decisions at that level to people with power, whether it's power from money or power from superpowers. And that's the most radical thing. The comics haven't gone that far. And I just, it blows my mind. And I agree with you about Sharon Carter. I think I think the whole reason the power broker exists is that there's going to be a power broker dealing with all of this, giving horrible people powers as a way of probably destabilizing the entire planet as part of the secret invasion.
It could also be a segue into Armor Wars.
It could be that, true. Although we discussed in our Nerd Week Live when we talked about the writer for the upcoming Ironheart series, that probably is going to be tying into the Armor Wars even more so. But yeah, I mean, we don't know how. I don't know if they're going to be introducing Crimson Dynamo or Titanium Man or whoever, but we don't know how they've got their armor at this point.
I only want Titanium Man if Sam Rockwell is playing him. He is the only one I want to see in that
wallet?
suit.
Take my money.
And have him
Sam
dancing.
Anything, but
have him dancing too, because he is a phenomenal dancer.
Anyway, all of the messages and themes that have been described so far are 100% there, and are all pretty important. My take on it just is based on some of the stuff that, or a lot of stuff that's presented in the show, but also speculation on where it looks like they're going to take this sort of moral stance about who gets the right to decide, life or death things for populations around the world.
It's good. It's good news that now that they've released news that they're gonna do a Captain America 4, and it's gonna be the same director, same team of writers.
So the multiple directors in the series, the guy who's writing Captain America 4 is the head writer and showrunner of the series.
Yes, that's what I mean. I'm sorry. So
and I'm here for it.
Yeah, and the fact that he's doing that looks like we're going to see a continuation of these themes in the movie.
Yeah, I would not mind them getting somebody who could handle action a little bit better.
David Leitch.
Sure. But even if that's not the case, Marvel has really good action stunt coordinators, and at the movie level, I'm not worried about it. Nobody would ever call Kenneth Branagh an action director, but the action in the first Thor was fine.
Hollywood, if you're considering directors, there's this awesome Japanese director called Koichi Sakamoto. He does like a lot of stunt direction for Super Sentai and Power Rangers. Just throwing it out there.
Was he the one that they hired to do X-Arm?
I think so.
Because if he is,
he
does live action wonderfully.
Yeah, boy, I'm avoiding that. I'm avoiding that series like the plague.
Oh, you should.
Yes.
But this isn't anime octane. This is full fat spoiler chat.
Yeah.
All right, that's pretty close to an hour here, folks. Last thoughts about how much I'm not even gonna say would you recommend it. How much would you recommend it? And let's go with where you think anything, whether it's individual characters or the general storyline, is going to go in the future. Byron.
Honestly, the sky's the limit, because they have cemented Anthony Mackie and his character's position in the MCU, and as well as the cultural zeitgeist at this point. And I can't wait to see where he goes and where this franchise goes with him.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to him taking another picture with a kid wearing his Captain America costume for Halloween.
Absolutely. Manny.
10 out of 10. This is a near perfect series. I love that Marvel's smart enough, Kevin Feige smart to understand that movies aren't wrapped around superheroes. You just get a good story, and it just so happens there's superheroes in it. I love that a lot. I if you would tell me that the 3 Captain America movies, and then this series would be one of the best things Marvel puts out or Disney has put out, I would have called you a liar, especially after watching that 1994, 92 Captain America movie.
Oh,
Oh, oh,
Reb, what's his name? I'm trying to say Reb. Yeah, no. Oh, that was awful.
oh. Yeah, it was terrible, terrible, terrible.
But
Um,
it was so bad it was good though.
I don't know. The beginning was okay, and then it got even worse. I'll never watch it again. But anyway, but yeah, it's. I mean, they're fantastic films. It's a fantastic series. There's certain Iron Man movies I want to watch again. There's certain Thor movies I want to watch again. I will watch Captain America movies all the time because they're just great, great action, great drama, and the series for a series that is made really to promote future series and another movie. Fantastic job.
Oh, I do have one more complaint. They killed Batroc. They killed Batroc the Leaper. He was.
That's a good point. I mean, Georges St. Pierre, as you know, you can't think of a better guy to, put in that role. He is French Canadian, so he's a natural French speaker, and he is an MMA master and a kicking MMA master.
Yes.
So yeah, I hope they do something to bring him back.
Did they show the body? Did they show his body?
No, they didn't.
So
They say
you never know.
He just got shot.
I'm with both of you guys, and particularly Manny. Go watch the show. I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10 because of those the story structure problems probably because of what they cut out. Pushing a 9 out of 10. If I was doing it just on story, it'd probably be a 7. But the meaning of this series, the complexity, the balls of Marvel to do what they did with it, 9 out of 10, 100%. No,
I'm going to go 9.5 myself.
That's fine. I would, you could talk me up to that 0.5 easily. So anyway, it's for folks. If you haven't seen it, what the hell are you doing watching the show? If you haven't seen it though, or if you want to give a recommendation to other people based on our recommendation, go watch this.
You need it in your life.
It's only 6 episodes, so it comes in at like 5.5 hours because they're not quite full hour episodes. So it's a commitment, but it's a weekend commitment. It's not a ton. And it actually could have used 8, but anyway. All right, folks, that's it. So Monday, Anime Octane will be about the currently running anime Tokyo Revengers. It's pretty cool. It's based on an insanely popular manga. So check it out, folks, if you have seen or are currently watching Tokyo Revengers. Because we're going to spoil things up to episode 4, but it's currently running, so that's not called spoilers. Or if you haven't, you want to find out what it's all about, check us out on Monday. Tuesday, Nerd Week Live. I just put in a buttload of new stuff. It's going to be a big one again, but all really cool stories. So we'll be talking about nerd news from this past Tuesday to next Tuesday. Check us out then. Also 8 o'clock. And next Thursday, the cartoon version of The Boys, Invincible, which actually isn't accurate. It's nothing remotely as profane. It's just boys are bloody.
And nowhere near as cynical.
We won't talk about it now because we're going to be talking about it next Thursday. Is Invincible. So once again, it's 8 episodes on Amazon Prime. You got plenty of time to watch it.
How long are they? How long is each episode?
Hour.
Yeah,
roughly.
Close to an hour. So they're under. I assume there's time to allow for commercials when they wind up on some other platform. So they're right around 48 to 52 minutes. But so it is 8 hours. But anyway, folks, thank you very much. Thank you for the chats. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will see you sometime next week. Byron, give us a goodbye.
All right, guys. Byron D0. Check me out on my webcomic that I mentioned earlier, or you can check out my latest work on BDZ my BD0 Art on Instagram. That's BDZEROART.
Cool beans. Manny.
Support our Patreon. Support if you want to support by buying merchandise, you can do so below our video.
I gotta find our
And just one
Patreon thing. I can't find it. Oh no.
and just one last note. Ed Brubaker didn't complain a bit that he didn't get much out of this because even though he wrote a lot of stuff, the fact of a lot of stuff that you see in Falcon and the Falcon series and Winter Soldier, all that stuff he helped create. And so I recommend buy his independent works and an Image or can't remember the other companies right now, but support him.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic writer.
And even though this isn't Nerd Week Live, we don't have a Could We Please or Could We Not, Disney, pay the contracts that you bought when you bought Marvel and Fox. Pay those people. They had residual rights contracts, and you are not paying them. Pay these people. Stop. I don't even get why you're not. You know, it's a legal contract. I don't see how you could possibly not, you know, abide by it. But anyway, look that up, folks, if you want. Disney is just being horrible to an awful lot of creators right now.
Exactly.
Anyway, so that's it, folks. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.